Christina would never have walked away from her family. She knew she was loved.
Whoever did this really knew what they were doing and did not want her found.
It seemed like during this entire process, we were chasing a ghost.
The person responsible for what happened was calling trick plays.
We just needed a few trick plays of our own.
And as soon as we saw that opening, we thought, man, if we were going to get rid of a body, this would be a great place. On January 12th, 1995, at approximately 12:55 in the afternoon, the Cleveland Division of Police got a missing person report from Jose Rivera. Jose is reporting the disappearance of his girlfriend, Christina Adkins. She was 18 years old, about 5 months pregnant, and lived with Jose. He was 20 years old at the time. Jose indicated that he was at work, and when he came home that night, she was missing, that nothing unusual had been happening at home, that she disappeared, and that was not something she had done before.
Christina was gentle. She was almost angelic. When she first told me that she was expecting, she had a big smile on her face. She was happy about it. She was looking forward to it. So when you don't see a person like for 3 days and you don't know what's going on, you don't hear anything, I was really concerned and really worried.
Any missing persons case is just on face value a traumatic and often potentially horrific scenario. But when a young woman like Christina Adkins, who happens to be 5 months pregnant, goes missing, that sets off some serious alarm bells with police.
Jose and Christina lived approximately 2 blocks away from Christina's family. So one of the first things we did was go to her family to see if anybody had any information where she might have gone.
Police found out on the day she disappeared. The family was preparing for another joyful milestone in Christina's pregnancy. They were making plans to go to the hospital and find out the sex of her baby.
But Christina's family told us Christina was fighting with her boyfriend, Jose, recently, and was considering breaking up with him.
And we learned that she had a very tumultuous relationship. He was extremely controlling.
Her parents also told us when Christina went missing on that day, her and Jose were involved in some type of altercation.
I know their relationship was not perfect, but she loved Jose because she told me that she loved him. I did tell her, Christina, let me tell you something. If there's one thing that I believe in is that a man should never mistreat a woman. So if you ever feel that he is mistreating you in any way, shape, or form, let me know. Just don't put up with it.
What we learned about the relationship led us to the conclusion. There was much more to the story. Jose was showing all the indicators of somebody who was willing to commit violence against Christina.
The only problem was, what if he did do something to Christina, and where did he put her?
Investigators also found out that night when Christina disappeared, Christina had plans, in fact, to meet up with a friend a block away to the home she shared with her boyfriend.
So we needed to see if Christina did, in fact, spend the night at her friend's house. There's the possibility that maybe she was going to lay low for a couple days.
We talked to the friend, and Christina was over at her house that night. The two were playing cards, talking, watching TV. Christina was planning on spending the night at that house, but she knew that Jose would expect her to be home. So around 1:30 in the morning, she made the decision that she would walk just a few houses up the street back to the home that she shared with her boyfriend.
As Christina was leaving, her friend did notice that a car had pulled up, and Christina was speaking with the driver. The friend didn't make much of this, and nor did she see Christina walk away from that car.
Nobody really knew if Christina had gotten to this car, and if she did, where did she go? The investigation in the beginning took two avenues. First of all, Jose wasn't too upfront about the argument that they had when he reported her missing, which sort of shed a little bit of suspicion upon him. And then second of all is the mystery car that nobody seemed to know anything about.
We needed to talk to Jose.
Christina's boyfriend repeatedly told detectives that he would never have hurt her. Again, she was the mother of his unborn child. He loved her.
But based upon his lack of truthfulness about the fighting, he was considered a main suspect. Even though there was no hard evidence, so as the investigation turned on, there was still the question of that suspicious vehicle. The focus was then directed to finding that vehicle. There was door-to-door canvassing to see if anybody had any recollection or any knowledge of this suspicious car or had seen anything that had happened that night with Christina.
We interviewed a neighbor of Jose named Elias Rivera. He told us at the time, yeah, I saw her. She was crying and she was upset, and she was saying that she didn't want to go home.
But he didn't remember or recall that suspicious mystery car that Christina was seen talking to. He had no knowledge of that vehicle.
It was super frustrating. There was the fear of being defeated. That is what keeps me up at night.
In a city as large as Cleveland, it's not out of the question for cars to go unnoticed or be difficult to find. How do you go about looking for a single car in a city like Cleveland?
It was just like Christina had vanished off the planet. It was sort of like watching a movie where, you know, scenes disappear and, you know, there's a lot of like unknowns. This was like one of those kind of cases. It was just a lot of missing parts. But unfortunately, it's not a movie. Christina was 5.5 months pregnant at the time. We were working tirelessly to try to find her. But we were left with nothing, like we were chasing a ghost.
We were working hard to unravel whatever mystery happened to her.
But it appeared that somebody had gone to great lengths to make sure that Christina was never found and just had some type of joy in befuddling the police. She looked like such an innocent person. Things like that, they haunt you. when you're a policeman. It's like some type of game, some type of sick game. And there's a lot we didn't know at that time. But we did know that we would have to get into a mind of a killer.
The night 18-year-old Christina Atkins went missing, detectives didn't really have much information to go off of. Christina Atkins just simply disappeared.
Her family told us Jose, Christina's boyfriend, had put all of her belongings out on the curb and ready to be disposed of in the garbage. He couldn't have been more suspicious if he tried.
Could you imagine to just carelessly toss her things out? That was a very strange thing to do when it's done by the victim's boyfriend and the father of this unborn child. But on face value, that's not evidence of a crime. It doesn't necessarily point to any culpability on the part of her boyfriend.
So the question becomes, like, was he trying to just erase her out of his life? Was he not being forthcoming about what the type of relationship that he really had with her? Was he really the love of her life? It did with Jose have something to do with her disappearance. We didn't really know.
It was really sad when I heard on the news. The family was really heartbroken. Nobody knew exactly where Christina was. And we were actually hanging up posters. We were looking for her.
And then in an incredibly bizarre turn of events, as the family spent time putting up these flyers, they were coming down right away. They were being removed right away, almost as fast as they were being put up. The family would walk down West 25th Street, plastering these flyers on streetlights and windows and walls. And the next day, walk back down 25th again, and those flyers would all be gone. It makes you wonder, was there someone in the community who really didn't want Christina to be found?
Somebody went to great lengths to try to hide the fact that Christina was missing and to do things like tearing down the posters. That really complicated the investigation.
As the 90s ticked into the 2000s, into the 2010s, 2013, Christina had been missing longer than she had been alive.
After time goes on, there's a pretty good indication that, Christina was deceased, and that whoever was responsible for her abduction and murder was going through great lengths to try to hide her body, from the police and give the family closure.
Christina's family, during that time that she's missing, they never lost hope that they would see Christina again, that the case would be solved.
Who do we want? Christina! When do we want her? Now!
Today, family and friends marched side by side down Clark Avenue to the corner of West 25th and Kinkle Avenue, the place where Christina Atkins was last seen.
We had always hoped, of course, to bring Christina home to her family alive and unharmed and unravel whatever mystery happened to her. And it's a very difficult thing to do as an investigator. After years and years of not finding somebody, it is very easy to start thinking, well, we'll never find her.
After so many years, you have no choice but to think the worst. We all had hopes that Christina was going to be found, but it was hard.
May 6th, 2013 is a very important date in the recent history of Cleveland and certainly in the story of Christina Adkins.
It was a day that changed me forever.
There was an incident where neighbors heard screaming coming from an address on Seymour Avenue in Cleveland. One neighbor discovered a girl that was trying to kick and punch her way out of a door of the house. The neighbors helped her pull the door open, and she ran across the street to get away from the house and asked somebody for a phone or to call 911.
Help me. You need police, fire, ambulance. I'm the police. Okay, and what's going on there? I'm Amanda Berry. I've been kidnapped and I've been missing for 10 years, and I'm here. I'm free now.
At the time, the FBI was involved in the investigation of the two missing persons, Amanda Berry and another missing Cleveland teenager, Gina DeJesus. When I responded to Seymour Avenue that day, the ambulance was still there. I immediately recognized the missing teenage girls, Amanda and Gina, and there was another adult woman there.
There's a picture circulating right now, a picture of Amanda and a young girl. That girl was in the house with her, but as of yet, we don't know who that girl is.
You know, outside of the news media frenzy, alarm bells were going off, and one of the things that family and police were thinking was, could this third woman be Christina Adkins?
Three missing women, gone since they were girls, found alive together a decade later.
The rescued victims from that house were Gina DeJesus and Amanda Berry. The name of the third female inside the house was not immediately released to the media.
After all these years of waiting and hoping and praying, here was some sort of break and a chance to finally get some news. Christina's family hightailed it over to the hospital to hopefully find some information, to hopefully encounter Christina there. Just waiting for some information about who was in the hospital. Could this third woman be Christina Adkins? As the night wore on, the third woman was identified as Michelle Knight, who had been missing for the last 10 years. And while Christina's family were incredibly thankful for that young woman being safe, they were also heartbroken that this one slim chance had been taken away, that it was not Christina.
Even though we learned the identity of the third woman was not Christina Adkins, we still thought her disappearance was connected.
Detectives find out a man named Ariel Castro was responsible for kidnapping and holding those three women in his home for years.
When the girls were abducted, witnesses would say that they were talking to somebody in a car. If we go back, the last time anybody saw Christina alive, she was talking to somebody in a car. So, same MO.
This is all the same neighborhood that we're talking about, this near West Side neighborhood. Everything involved here is within a square mile of itself. So Ariel Castro's house and Christina's disappearance, everything. It's all just right there. And the timeline was right. Could Castro have done something with her in 1995 and then reset and started doing it again in the early 2000s.
Ariel Castro was somebody that we all actually, in a way, grew up with because we grew up in a close area where the Castros were. We knew that he was scary. I mean, he was creepy looking. He would, like, look at you, and you could see it in his eyes. You could see the creepiness in him. I mean, he just wasn't right.
I don't think I went home for days after May 6th. We spent nights and weekends in the office poring over every piece of evidence that we collected. We thought of, dozens of different theories that would have involved Ariel Castro and Christina's disappearance. We executed 19 or 20 separate search warrants at his house. There was not a stone unturned in that house or on that property. We looked in every corner. We searched that house with multiple teams of forensic experts.
In addition to DNA, firearms, and fingerprint testing, we're told BCI is also looking at other evidence to determine if there are any additional victims.
But there was no evidence in that house that Christina Atkins had ever been there. But then we learned that Christina's boyfriend, Jose, knew Ariel Castro.
So there was that thought that, maybe Ariel Castro, in company with Jose Rivera, were responsible for what happened to Christina Atkins.
We said, Jose has been a suspect in this case for 18 years. Jose was still living in the same house. He was living there with his mother.
We went back, grabbed Jose one more time, and was brought in for questioning in Christina's disappearance once again.
He was asked a lot of questions about his connection to Ariel Castro. He was very uncomfortable, sweating. I mean, there was a lot of signs that showed, like, he pretty much looks like he could be responsible for this. He was denying all allegations that we were throwing at him with his involvement with Christina's disappearance.
We felt that Jose was not telling the truth. And so we executed searches of his house, and we brought cadaver dogs in. We thought that whatever happened to Christina was well planned out. We all thought for sure that he had buried her in the backyard. We figured that would explain why her body had not been recovered.
What better place to hide a body than a backyard? That way, no one's gonna see someone carting a body out of the house and being taken elsewhere.
It was not a light touch. We dug the backyard, we looked in every corner, but we found nothing. That was beyond frustrating.
Without a body, we didn't even have a crime.
At this point, there was no way to connect her boyfriend, Jose Rivera, with Christina Atkins' disappearance.
I keep telling everybody, I'm an innocent man. I'm not a killer. That's my girlfriend. That's my everything. I wish she was right here right now. The way I feel right now, I lost everything.
We know now, of course, that no evidence pointed to Christina's boyfriend as being involved here. And so detectives questioned, was law enforcement even looking in the right direction? Ariel Castro was still on the radar of investigators. Did Ariel Castro have some sort of involvement with Christina Adkins' disappearance? Whoever did this was diabolical, a criminal mastermind. But in a case like this, there are a lot of unanswered questions.
All of our investigative focus and attention was still on Ariel Castro. So we focused on Christina's case with a completely fresh perspective. That was the first time that we said, what are we missing?
Law enforcement very quickly began interviewing neighbors, trying to figure out who Ariel Castro was. One of those neighbors was a man named Elias Acevedo. And in speaking with Elias, law enforcement described him as generally nervous and fidgety, even. He appeared very uneasy.
And that stood out to investigators. Then you start looking, okay, well, who's Elias Acevedo? And we start looking at his history, and his history was shocking. We found a report from 2004 where he was involved in the abduction and sexual assault of a 14-year-old girl. And that assault had occurred at his home. We found that it had been pled to a felony of the 3rd degree and that he had served a very light sentence on the case.
Elias Acevedo lived a few streets away from Christina Adkins. He was a sex offender. So that became a major red flag for us.
I just had the feeling that there had to be something here. I just had a feeling that they were somehow connected.
We start looking at Christina's report again, and one of the things that jumped off the page was the original investigators interviewed a neighbor named Elias Rivera. And he told police at the time, yeah, I saw Christina on the night she disappeared, and I saw her, she was crying, but he said he didn't know what happened to her. At the time, there was no reason to connect him with Christina Adkins' disappearance. But by comparing photos now, we discovered that was actually Elias Acevedo. Back in 1995, he very intentionally gave police a false identity. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Those are the things that make you say, now we actually have the right guy. We had a new suspect to investigate. We learned through interviews with multiple members of his own family that Elias Acevedo, he was committing these atrocities in his own home. He was preying on his own children. He was tormenting, torturing, sexually assaulting his own family on a daily basis and exerting just an unbelievable amount of control and power over his wife at the time and each of these kids. So the stuff he did, it's just like, it was mind-blowing.
It took a lot of courage for Acevedo's family to come forward. They had been victimized, they had been beaten to a pulp by this guy, and in so many ways they lived in fear. He was a brutal guy.
When you finally click into the right track in an investigation, it feels right. And after 18 years, this finally felt right.
We had a feeling. We knew, I guess it was, instincts, that we were close to the end to knowing what had taken place with Christina.
We all believe the key to the cracking this case was Elias's family and the cooperation given what we did to them. And then as time went on, you know, Elias's wife was willing to speak on what she knew.
She sat down and talked to us for a couple of hours. One of the things that made it so remarkable is that her memory was so clear. She told us that she vividly recalled the day of January 10th, 1995. When Christina disappeared, she remembered Christina Adkins coming to her house. Then Elias left to go to a bar. She told us that he didn't come home until early that morning. He went into the bathroom and he smoked a cigarette. And she braced herself for the assault that she knew she was going to get. And it didn't happen. And that stood out to her. After talking to Elias's wife and poring over the timeline, we believe that this is in which he killed Christina. One of our original theories was that he must have committed this crime inside his house. It was cold outside, it was dark. So we wanted to search that. And we noticed there was an entrance and exit through trapdoors to the outside. So you could have gotten in and out of that house without going through a front door. His wife would not have heard anything.
There was a spot in the basement that kind of opened up a gate, and you accessed like an area under the porch that was all dirt. I describe Elias's house as a haunted house that didn't charge for admission.
As soon as we saw that opening in the basement, we thought, man, if we were gonna get rid of a body, this would be a great place.
We tore the house up pretty good, but we didn't find anything.
It did not deter us in any way in our belief that we were finally on the right track. Not finding human remains did not mean that we didn't have the right guy.
Everything was pointing towards Elias. He must have thought of every possible way to dispose of her and then picked the perfect place. We just needed a little bit more time and a few trick plays of our own.
The job for any investigator is to move the ball down the field. And we set out very early in this investigation to move this ball, even if it's inch by inch, day by day. And we knew that if we could just keep getting first downs, we were going to solve the case. It was at that point that we made a decision to make our move, to talk to Elias Acevedo himself.
Acevedo raped his family daily, intimidated everybody, threatened to kill other family members if they ratted him out. We knew he would be hard to break.
We took him to the Cleveland FBI headquarters and really sat down with him.
How's everything going? I call it it's going all bad for me and all swell for them.
In the beginning, Elias did not want to talk with us. He didn't feel comfortable with us, and he was denying all allegations that we were throwing at him with his involvement with Christina.
When we gave Elias the opportunity to take a polygraph, he accepted. And there's only one reason that somebody in his position would do that. He thought he could beat us.
Okay. You're fine on the psychological questions. Okay. So the questions that you're having trouble is, can you take us to where Christina is at? You are at 100% failure rate on that one. And did you cause the disappearance of Christina? There's a 99% on that one. So something happened.
Yeah, because I've been thinking about, saying that day that I seen her. So of course, saying.
When he was confronted with his failures on those two facts, I think really that's the straw that broke the camel's back and convinced him that he wasn't going to get out of it this time.
We told Acevedo that we were going to give him a limited opportunity to admit to us that he killed Christina. And if he did it, we would not seek the death penalty. We called it a blue light special, that the deal ends when the light goes off.
But he was hesitating. And still wasn't 100% sure he was going to confess and tell us what we wanted to know.
Elias finally broke. He confessed to murdering Christina Atkins.
Yeah, I choked her. Okay.
Okay.
I was drunk.
Okay.
Scared.
Okay.
I didn't mean to do it. Okay. And I did have sex with her, yes, you know what I'm saying? I pushed her, she hit the wall thing and got knocked out.
How did you leave her body? Did you dig a hole and put her in it, or just cover her up?
Covered her up.
Just covered her up. Right there next to the highway.
Yes.
Under anything? Did you put her under anything?
Like a little sewer thing. Yeah.
We don't solve every case with a confession, but the ones that we do are special. But we needed proof. We needed to bring Christina Atkins' body home to her family. So we asked Acevedo to take us to her. And he agreed.
All right. Show me on the map where we're going to go.
Okay, we're going right here.
Right here?
Yeah, we're going to right here. You know, and that bridge to go like this over the each side.
Okay.
So we leg shackled him and belly chained him and put him in the car, and he took us turn by turn. And he said, pull over here.
And he said, just on the other side of this Jersey barrier, you'll go down a hill and there'll be a sewer drain. And I put her in the sewer drain. So we walked down this hill and we came to the sewer drain. And we lifted this top up and looked down in there. And I mean, I was shocked. As clear as day, there were her remains at the bottom of this hole. 18 years later. And I could see them by standing at the top of this hole and just looking down. It was unreal. And when we exhumed Christina's body from the bottom of the hole, we found an ID card with her name on it.
When they said that they found Christina's body, I remember breaking down, crying, and my mother too. You know, all of us, we were emotional. You know, we didn't expect for her to go through that, especially the way she was taken. And to throw her in a sewer, and a baby. I mean, what kind of monster does that? He's a monster. He's Satan.
It was like a game of cat and mouse, where the mouse was running law enforcement in circles. Elias Acevedo thought he was clever. He hid Christina's body in a place that was almost in plain sight. And in fact had used new construction and highway infrastructure to hide Christina's body. I mean, it was a absolutely diabolical thing to do. And then to have 18 years pass by, it's astonishing to think about.
The odds of solving this case was like the kid who walks up to his baseball coach and says, "Coach, I'm gonna hit a grand slam today." You say, "Good." You say, "Good, kid." First, you gotta set up the bases. You gotta load the bases, right? Then you gotta have the power to hit it over that fence. And Agent Burke did both. He set up the bases and he hit that ball right over the fence for the grand slam. It was a heck of a day.
And we were able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Elias Acevedo and Elias Acevedo alone was responsible for the murder of Christina Atkins.
On December 30th, 2013, Acevedo was sentenced to prison for life on over 100 counts without possibility of parole, with an additional 445 years to serve.
He took my life, my love, my pride, my wife, my child. But you know what? There's a God up there, and she's in good hands.
I hope Elias thinks about what he's done for the rest of his life. I hope he's tormented every day, every moment, every second. It's not only by what he did to Christina and that baby, but also, the grief that he caused. I hope he's tormented. I hope that he doesn't live in peace.
It really was a needle in a haystack.
Had the teens gone off the road and they were stranded somewhere?
Why would someone do that to two teenagers?
It unleashed something we never even fathomed.